All right, you ready to go?
Hello, I'm Robert Lawson for Woodlawn, and this is a meeting, Committee of the Holes, August 12th, 2020. Starts at 6 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Present is Brian Poole, Rosemary Brown, Jerry Thangman, John Fuller, Kiana Tribune, Garrick Brocalter, Esther Boyd, Tim Eagle, Pamela Fitzgerald, Mr. Tillman, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Forth will be joining us, and unfortunately, Steve is no longer with us right now.
Okay.
I'd like to give my team a minute to overlook the minutes, and then I'll be asking for approval after I give you guys a chance to look over the minutes from last meeting.
All right. Bobby, if you would just kindly go backwards and do an official roll call for council members only.
I'd like to do an official roll call for council members only. Rosemary Brown, Esther Boyd, Pamela Fitzgerald,
Here.
Kiana Tribune,
Here.
and Garrick Brocalter.
Here.
Here.
Rosemary, can you say here again?
Present.
Thank you. Okay, well, I'll give you a chance to look over the minutes from last meeting and just, I guess, look up when you have a chance to actually go over all the information.
That is from February the 12th, right?
Yes, that's from
Okay.
February 12th.
Okay.
Robert,
Yes.
this is Jerry. It seemed like we lost Anthony.
Oh, I don't know where he went. I was
He
looking.
was on.
He was.
He was on.
Well, hopefully he signs back in.
All right. There's Amos. There's Chief. Chief, you killing me in that solarium, brother. Yeah. All right. I've seen him on the post. All right. He'll log back in.
Okay.
Hopefully.
I know. I just talked to him like 10 minutes ago.
I seen him on the post when I logged in. I seen his face. Yeah.
Okay. Does everybody have enough time to look over the minutes, or you need a little more time? I'm not rushing.
Is Esther still here? Her picture's not showing.
I see her as a muted. She's on mute, but I do not see her face.
Here. Well, we can continue, I guess.
Uh-huh.
All right. Can I get an approval of August 12, 2020 Council of the Whole minutes, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from February.
A second.
Okay. All right. First on tonight's agenda, we'll be going to police and fire salary increases. I'm gonna chime in with. I'll give Mr. Tillman a chance to chime in on this.
Question, do we need to do roll call or people to signify if they aye or nay for the minutes?
Thank you. My hand was up. I just don't know if you heard me waving.
Oh, I didn't see it. I'm sorry. Can I have a official approval of last meeting minutes by ayes? All ayes?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Are there no nays? There are no nays, correct?
Okay. We can.
Is that correct? Okay.
That's correct.
Okay.
All right, Tillman.
I believe this is going to be Tim's section because him and the manager prepared this. I may have a question or two, but I would defer to Tim or the manager.
Okay, Tim, you have the floor.
All right. I think, as we're all aware, we've been discussing police and fire salaries as well as retention. I know that, I believe it was Chief Tillman, had made a couple of recommendations regarding benefits increases and shift differentials, and things of that nature. With discussion with the village manager, it seemed most prudent to simply address the issue of salaries right now. I've put together a proposal that all of you have in your packets. And the proposal is to increase police and fire salaries by either 2%, 3%, or 5%. No matter which increase we choose, we're still under the budget that we approved for the current year. And we should still come in under budget. I do, especially with the way things are going and with as kind of up in the air as revenues are right now, it kind of makes sense to just sort of, we want to make sure we do something for police and fire. We've got to make sure that they know, and we also understand that they need to be paid more, and we need to pay them to be a little bit closer to what we are in the rest of the community. But I think right now it makes the most sense to try to do one of these three increases and kind of come back about the middle of the year next year, around June, when Jerry and I can kind of reevaluate how revenues are going within the village. Based on how things have occurred with the pandemic, it's kind of hard to estimate what's going to happen next year with our tax revenues and things of that nature. And what we don't want to do is tell people we're going to give them something that we can't, is make a promise we can't keep. I know we can do any one of the three options I've listed. And, you know, I think right now this kind of makes the most sense for us. But I think, you know, like I said, everybody kind of has the proposal there. If we just currently right now, if we didn't do anything, we'd come in on the police side at $207,000 under budget, and on the fire side for salaries and benefits at $134,000 under budget. Police, if we do a 2% increase, we're at $198,000 under budget. 3% for police takes us to $193,000 under budget, and a 5% increase takes us to $183,000 under budget. Similarly with fire, 2% increase will take us to $120,000 under budget. 3% would be $114,000 under budget, and 5% increase will put us at about $101,000 under budget for fire salaries. Jerry and I think both think it would make sense to make those increases retroactive back to August 1st. Make sure we give the officers and the firefighters a little bit more of a bump there. But I think that's kind of where we're at the moment.
Can I add something to that?
Sure.
Who had their hand up first?
Robert.
We'll go with Kiana.
Okay, thank you. I just had a question related to the figures that are related to fire salary with 5% retroactive August 1st.
Yeah.
Second column where it says total fire budget salary, that's the same figure as the one related to the 3%, that 1.67697.
Correct.
Yes.
Well.
Well, yeah. So what we're showing is how much we're coming in under budget. So
Okay.
the 1.6 million is what the total fire budget was, what we budgeted for fire in total this year.
Okay.
So with the increases, we're showing what the difference is each time.
Oh, okay.
Got you.
Got it. Okay.
Any other questions? I seen somebody else in them. We'll
Jerry.
go Esther. I'll see you too, Jerry. Go ahead, Esther. Your turn. You got to unmute yourself. Esther, you got to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Bobby. You may have mentioned it, Tim, when I stepped out, but okay, you got the 2%, 3%, and 5%.
Yes.
What does that bring the starting salary up to, or what would the starting salary be for a policeman in Woodlawn?
For a new officer?
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, when I discussed it with Officer Forth, I believe our current, and Chief Tillman can speak to it obviously, I think our current starting salary for a police officer is 40,000. Is that correct, Chief?
Yeah, it's roughly that. Yeah.
Okay. So a 5% increase would bring that officer up to 42,000. I'm sorry, to 42,000. Yeah.
42. Okay. So that would be the 5%.
That'd be the 5. Yeah. 2%. 2% would be 40,800. 3% would be 41.2, I think.
Okay. And also, let me ask this. In the area, Chief Tillman, what was the average, what was the starting salary or average or median salary, starting salary in the area, or a village comparable to our size? I thought we had discussed that before.
It's 52,000.
Okay.
All right. Jerry, I believe, was next.
Okay. I just want to add a couple things to what Tim commented on. We did look at we were first looking at 2 and 3%, and we did a 5%. When he shows those numbers that are, I'll just use the police budget, total budget, $1,340,000. When I came last July, was the budgeted number in the appropriations for 2020. I told him not to exceed that number. I didn't realize that there was both police and fire, and no offense to either chief, but there was a significant increase placed into those appropriations, hoping they would get passed and there'd be an ordinance passed to do some salary increases. That salary increase proposal in 2019 never was adopted. So our employees are still working off 2018 numbers. But now looking at that, the concern I have is we don't know where our revenues are going to fall. We still have to do something with these pay for these police and firemen because we're losing them constantly. And it's costing just as much money to replace an officer, train them, equip them, and then have them turn around and leave in a couple of years. This is the beginning of what I hope. To me, my recommendation, because of the pandemic that has hit us, our revenues, we're not sure where they're going to fall, is to do the 3% increase, retroactive to August 1st. Tim had mentioned maybe looking at sometime, maybe in June. I'm hoping by the end of the year when we do our 2021 appropriations ordinance, we can figure in another percentage increase for our police and fire, as well as all employees of the village for our 2021 budget, because no one's had a raise since at least 2018. And then we can look and see what percentage we can tackle. Also, then we can also look at the possibility of the old step increases that our police and fire had some time ago, because I think it's important that we go after the salary increases first. I know the chief has recommended a bunch of other benefit options. I appreciate him looking out for himself and his officers, but when we go to attract a new employee, the first bottom line they're going to look at is the salary, probably salary and health insurance, and then other benefits after that. I think we need to get this salary increase, continue to look at it and get it up. I'd be a little hesitant to jump to the 5% because I just don't know where our income is. And I think Tim would agree with me, but if we do the 3% now, retroactive August 1st, and turn around and look beginning of next year, if we can afford to do police and fire again with another increase, along with then our other employees, I think that would be the approach I would recommend. So with that being said, if anybody has any questions, I'll gladly answer them.
Pam had her hand up first. Go ahead, Pam, and then I'll get with you, Kiana.
I would like to see the police and fire receive a 5% increase. Have any longer, as well as a rec director, which maybe we can push till 2021. since there's not a lot of activity going on in the rec department. I think the police and fire has waited a long time for an increase, as well as we've been paying for people to come in as a revolving door on our expense. They've had a lot of training, a lot of people who have come in and out, and I think we should work that in. I know we're under a current pandemic, but hopefully Rita can bring us some money in for 2021. We've made some decisions based on the pandemic in regards to some of those other decisions. So I think we should definitely try to compensate our fire department, the 5% that I feel like they're due to train officers to come and leave like a revolving door, and compare the numbers that we just received. $40,000 is where they are roughly starting, and other municipalities are roughly at 52. We're behind the barrel. So I disagree with Jerry, and I think we should go for 5%, and hopefully we'll have some steps to try to get them where they should be coming up in the future. That's my take.
Okay, thank you. Kiana, you got the floor next. And then Doobie, then I'll go to you, Brian Mayer.
Thank you. I just wanted to respond to something that Jerry said as well, and that is Chief Tillman has put forth some recommendations for additional things that we can do to make our police department in particular whole. And I know we're specifically talking about salary right now, and that's where we want to start, but it would be really good to see a full plan that would include those additional benefits and things that he recommended, or potentially some new things, along with some deadlines, so that this doesn't fall off the radar as we move forward. Because we know that the salary it's a big piece of the pie, but it's only one piece of the pie. There are other things that we need to do as well. So if we could see a comprehensive plan on what that looks like, along with some tentative deadlines, I think that would be really helpful.
Can you get that for us, Chief?
I can, and I know I'm not in line, but I want to get in line to comment, so I'll let you go to the speaker.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Garrett. You're next.
I mean, if he has information, he can go before me.
Okay, thank you, sir. I would just like to say, even though we're in a pandemic, all communities, all municipalities are faced with the same thing, and they're still hiring police and fire, and that's because they value that service to the point where they know that has to be done. So I would just like to add that all communities are in the same situation. And if you look to see who's hiring currently, you will see that those municipalities are not going to hold up on hiring police and fire because of they're in the pandemic. They're moving forward with that. So public safety is huge in the community. It needs to be given that attention. If not, we're going to fall further and further behind, and we're going to stay on the hamster wheel. And even though there's some recommendations for pay increases to be made, they're still not where they need to be. And I suggest if we're going to take a stab at it, let's take one stab at it and let it be a correct stab and be done with it. I have mentioned this before, prior to the manager coming, that if they included myself and Amos Johnson in the discussion, we can propose some things that will make our departments whole. And we can do this one time, and then you can have a discussion about something other than police and fire finances. That's all I want to say.
Okay, Garrett, would you like to go next?
Yes. I agree with Chief. One of the things that I'm hearing is that our police are at $40,000, and I guess I'm hearing that we're trying to get to at least $52,000. That's a 30% increase. And we're talking about giving a 5% increase. That's like putting a patch on a flat. I'm with Chief. We need to come up with a solid plan and do this one time. Are we talking about pulling the money from the same pot? The police department is coming from the general budget. The fire department has a levy. The fire department's raises should be factored into their levy. That's all I got to say.
I think right now would be a good time for the mayor to chime in. He did have his hand up. Brian?
So I do have a couple questions. I am looking at I'm looking at both the 2%, 3%, and 5%. Yes, we need to do something in terms of that. We've been talking about it. Yes, we do. I kind of want to piggyback on what Kiana is saying in terms of what is outside of just salary. What other benefits or what other incentives are you looking at to retain those employees? I'd like to see that. And then the question that I have for Jerry out there, if the starting salary or at 5% takes that officer 42, is that where does the 42 fit? Is that the bottom of the scale?
Mhm.
Jerry,
Yeah,
Starting.
our starting salary will still be at the bottom scale of all the communities around us.
which will be 42?
Well, it is now.
Okay. And so the question becomes that I have is, if we were to do a 5% currently, and then we talk about doing raises in addition to the employees for next year, what would that percentage look like for police and fire?
Yes. Well, we can make it 10, 20, 15%, but the problem is we got to see what revenues we
I
have.
get it.
Spending money without knowing where we financially stand.
Okay.
And continue to say, yeah. I mean, I agree that our police and fire are well underpaid. Our public works department is still underpaid, and our rec employees are. But I mean, we're looking at the public service right now.
Right.
Safety services.
Right.
And we need to do something. And if we want to go to the 5%, that's fine, but we need to say before we jump into 2021, where do we stand financially? This community is carrying a lot of debt. I know we have the levy covers the fire and we're getting rid of one big liability, but we have other things we want to do. And I'll be bringing some of that up in a later conversation here on the agenda when it comes to the fire.
Okay.
Okay. I'm gonna let Pam have the floor. Go ahead, Pam. I see you, Ms. Boyd. I'll give you a couple more questions for this topic. Go ahead.
Okay. I would like to propose that Tim, our finance director, begins to look at the 2021 budget. I think we talked about this a couple months ago, for him to take a peek at a tentative 2021 budget, so we can see what it kind of looks like and where it can fit in there. Because I know there's some things he's going to need to add to it for 2021, like the tax department. So I think he will probably have a bigger picture if he starts to peel that onion and try to see what 2021 looks like. I would like to see that, and where the salaries, far as I think you said it's the police would fit in, because the fire comes from the levy. Did I understand that correctly?
Can I answer real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
A portion of fire is covered by the levy. The fire levy brings in roughly $500,000 a year. Our fire budget is over $2 million a year. We can offset a lot of costs from fire using the levy. And as Jerry spoke to before, we've eliminated a large liability that had been charged to fire, and that helps out tremendously. But the fire levy doesn't cover all of their salaries. It'll cover a piece, but not the whole thing.
That gets you a good question. Ms. Boyd, I'm gonna give you a minute because we got to kind of wrap this up. Then Amos, I'm gonna let you chime in last on this topic. Go ahead, Ms. Boyd.
Okay. Tim, on this police salary, the over under budget, like giving them the 5%, you would still have roughly 183,000 that you are still under.
Yes.
Okay. So I think, the 5%, and we can do other things. Like I said, we weren't as worried about pandemic when we wanted to bring Rita in. We weren't worried about the pandemic as much. So yes, I do know we have to worry about pandemic, but our safety is very, very important. So I think we should do all we can do there, just like we did in other situations where we weren't as concerned about pandemic.
Okay, is any more questions on that one? I was gonna go to Amos. You had something you wanted to add to that?
Yes, sir, real quick. And just kind of piggybacking on Chief Tillman there too as well. I'm not sure if this was brought up. It was probably brought up in the past, but there is a shortage of police and firefighters right now too. So as all these communities are cherry picking all of our employees, we're running out of people to pick from. we may get a certified police officer or a certified firefighter, but again, do you want that 1 year, 2 year police officer showing up at your door, or do you want that 1 or 2 year paramedic showing up to take care of your family members? So at the same time as we're working on this, the shortage, it's a real shortage of even getting the people out of school. So the longer we do wait, we're not going to end up with these 10 and 15 year paramedics or these 10 and 15 year police officers on the street. So that's another safety issue too, of making those different mistakes. And why Lieutenant Forth is out there, or myself and Assistant Chief Pittman is out there supervising these folks. Our officers are actually someone that should be supervised by us. So just to keep that in mind too as well, it is a safety issue if they don't have that experience behind them out there making these split-second decisions as we see on a daily basis.
That's very interesting. Okay, we're gonna go to the next topic, and we'll be talking about police retention and steps. Who would like to chime in first on that? Jerry?
I really think that was covered under our first topic. I mean, it comes to wages, salaries, and everything else for our retention, unless someone else has something they want to add.
Yeah, if anybody has anything they want to add to that.
I just want to add one little thing. Fire chief just said there is a call for police reform, and in that reform, those agencies who don't have the representation in police and fire in their community right now, there's a big push to have that representation in the community. So when you get a minority firefighter, whether it's a woman, a black female firefighter, or an officer, there are going to be departments who are going to go to the police academy, and they're going to tell them that they're interested in them coming to work for them as long as they fit their core values. And how does Woodlawn compete with that when we're second from the bottom in pay? And it's just something we need to think about, because liability is going to play into that, because if you have a second and third year person responding to a fire or an EMS run or some type of call for criminal in nature, and they don't have their experience, error is going to happen. And on the backs of the community, which means it's going to be a liability lawsuit, because we don't have individuals who have been here, who's had the exposure, who has had the opportunity to gain experience. Because if you constantly rolling them over, it's just a matter of time before that gun goes off. I'm saying that metaphorically, I don't mean it literally. And it's a crisis. And then we'll be sitting around talking about how did this happen? And how it happened is because we don't have experienced individuals performing these critical duties. That's all I want to say on that.
Recall hearing that from Councilmember Burkhalter about a year or two ago in terms of minority officers, but that's another conversation.
Okay. Well, we can, if there's nothing else on that, we can move on to police vehicles.
Okay. We're actually.
You had your hand up. Go ahead, Tim.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so with police vehicles, it's actually police vehicles as well as public works. We're currently in the process of establishing a lease purchase agreement with U.S. Bank for the acquisition of police vehicles, 2 police SUVs and a public works pickup truck. The documents are currently being reviewed by our bond attorney. We'll have legislation put together here for the next meeting for council to vote on. But the village is looking to finance in round numbers $106,000 for the 3 vehicles. The interest rate on the lease purchase agreement will be 1.95%, and our lease payments will be $36,700 per year. They'll start in September of 2021, and they'll end in September of 2023. In addition to the vehicles that we're looking to finance, we'd like to purchase, or we'd like to ask council for the approval to purchase an additional police SUV. The total cost of that vehicle should be about $47,157. The majority of the cost will be charged to the Village Law Enforcement Trust Fund. That has a balance of $37,947. The remaining $9,210 will be taken from the general fund vehicle maintenance line item in the police budget. The new vehicle should offset a lot of those maintenance costs. We shouldn't need to do as much. And that'll be a big benefit to the police. We've got, I believe when I spoke with our lieutenant, I believe we have 8 vehicles in service. This will replace roughly half of those vehicles. The newest vehicle we have currently is from 2012, if my memory serves correct. Along with that law enforcement trust fund, though, we do need a policy to spend money out of that fund and be in compliance. So I'll be working with Chief on that. I've got a couple of draft ones that I've kind of had, and perhaps I'll get together with Chief and Lieutenant and see if we can't put something together to make sure council can approve that and we can spend that money in compliance.
Okay.
I have a question, Mr. Lawson.
Okay, Garrett, go ahead.
Tim,
Yes, sir.
are you saying that our newest vehicle in our police department is from 2012?
Yes, sir.
Didn't we just buy new vehicles with the previous finance director, and that's why we got into the financial situation that we're currently in?
I know that we purchased new vehicles. I don't recall the date of when that occurred, but I
That
believe.
was recently. That was within the last 3 years, 2-3 years.
Okay.
To answer the question, there's 2016s, those are the Tahoes. The 2016s, they should have been financed, they were not financed.
Right.
So village ended up having to pay cash for not only those vehicles, but for other items that was purchased in the, by the village that should have been financed, that didn't get financed for whatever reason. So we had to pay cash because we had already taken possession of those items. So that's what put us in that position, not having a lease in place when financing in place by the bank set up by the previous finance director. That's what got us in that situation.
Thank you, Chief.
Our newest vehicles are 2016s. Chief.
Correct.
2016
No,
or the
2018s.
2018?
2018. So we bought 2 in 2018.
No.
Those are the ones that we had. Yeah.
Okay.
I see Forbes just joined us. Welcome, Forbes. And Kiana, you have a question. Go ahead. You have the floor.
Yes, I had a couple questions, actually. So in this document that you shared with us, Tim, there you indicated 3 payments that would be made annually,
Correct.
a little over $36,000. And then the due dates are in September of each year.
Correct.
Okay, there's just one small typo on there. All the due dates all say 2021. So I just wanted to get clarification on that.
They do, yeah.
Okay, thank you. My other question is related to the trades that will account for a little over $10,000. How many vehicles are we trading in for that $10,000 value?
We're trading in several vehicles. I don't have the current count, but the majority of those are what, for lack of a better term, are the junk vehicles that are over at the Public Works building.
Okay, thank you. And then my next question is related to the additional SUV that you indicated would be about $47,000. And then the Village Law Enforcement Trust Fund balance of $37,000 would go toward the purchase of that vehicle.
Correct.
So my question is, what impact, if any, will us depleting that fund have on the village budget, the police budget in particular? And then also, how do funds get into that, that trust fund to begin with? So what's the opportunity for us to rebuild that fund back up to where it is now?
Sure. The fund hasn't been utilized in more than 2 years. We haven't budgeted anything for it. It's seen no activity. The Law Enforcement Trust Fund is a fund that receives money through, and again, Chief can probably speak to it better than I can just because he's more used to it. As I recall, that receives money through police seizures, and I believe drug-related activity and things of that nature. My understanding is that we had an officer that was more involved with that a while back, and we currently don't have that individual now. We've not seen any revenues in that fund in over 2 years, and we haven't spent anything out of that fund in over 2 years.
Did I answer your question, Kiana?
Mhm. Yep, thank you.
Any more questions on Tim referring to vehicles for the village?
So is this part of the rotation that we're gonna put in place? And then can we have a schedule of the additional vehicles that will need to be in the next rotation? I like to see that. Because it was 2018, I just looked it up, and that is correct, Lieutenant Ford. It was 2018 when we purchased those vehicles under our previous finance manager.
Okay. I will, I'll get a schedule together of the vehicles we currently have.
No worries.
Pam, you have a question?
Yeah, so the newest vehicles are 2018, not 2012? Is that what I just heard?
2018 is when we bought those vehicles.
That's what I said. I was just getting clarification.
Uh-huh. Yep.
2018.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll continue forward. We're going to talk about vacant positions update. Does anybody have an update on that?
I'll give you an update. We have 4 positions we're looking at advertising and posting. One is our full-time rec director. The other is our clerk of courts, as Debbie will be retiring at the end of this year. Again, a full-time position. The part-time position of a code enforcement officer and also a custodian at the recreation center, either on a full-time or part-time basis. When I left the office today, I asked Debbie if she had those job announcements finished, and she did not. Or not Debbie, but Charla. She is working on those. And I did send the mayor an email, I think it was like August 4th or 5th, about those positions.
Right.
Want to make sure we get them posted here shortly so that we can start recruiting candidates for those positions. The rec director, we will be advertising in the Ohio Parks and Recreation program, their association, to try to recruit. I did reach out to Springdale with their recruitments. They sent me about 15 applications. A lot of them were from out of town. Some of them had salary demands starting at $80,000 or more. So that kind of shunned me away from that. But I think we need to go ahead and start advertising that and moving forward. The clerk, of course, we're just trying to move ahead and be a little proactive here since Debbie announced that she is leaving. The code enforcement and the custodian, I'm waiting for Charlotte to have those postings, and I said to her to get them to me so I can review them, and then we can get those posted. We'll post it on our website. A lot of it's going to be word of mouth. I don't see any benefit of doing an Indeed advertisement or anything like that, because we're going to get everything coming out of woodworks on that. People saying they're qualified. I want somebody that is going to be code enforcer, knowing something about our international property maintenance code, as well as local zoning and property maintenance codes, just not pulling anybody off the street and saying they could do this job. So I'll keep you posted. We're going to get them posted, and we'll start that search on all of them.
Okay.
I have a question.
Any questions? Kiana, go ahead.
My question is related to the job descriptions. So I think this might be an opportunity, particularly for the rec director, to review that job description. I don't know how long ago the most recent version was reviewed or updated. I know Steve had been with us for about 5 years, so I'm assuming it was about 5 years ago. But as we have opportunities to bring new people on, I think it's a great time to review job descriptions and make any revisions prior to bringing somebody on.
I will.
Job descriptions was updated about 3 years ago for the entire village.
So it was updated 3 years ago?
About 3 years ago, when Epiphany was here, the Epiphany consultant was here, she did job descriptions about 3 years ago. when she was on board. It should be on the shared drive on the municipal side. All departments' job descriptions should be inside that folder.
I still think that 3 years is a while, and it would be of a benefit to review that, particularly because the situation has changed so much. We were thrown into a pandemic that we were not anticipating, and there were some other things and other responsibilities that fell on a lot of our staff. So I think we need to be proactive in making some revisions.
Okay, hold on. Next, but who has your hand up next? I'm gonna go with.
I did, I think.
Go ahead, Miss Boyd.
I had a discussion today, Jerry, but talking about maybe with the rec director, with the COVID-19, you might want to consider maybe posting that position later. We have acting rec director who's here with us, John Fuller, acting rec director, but it might be able to save some money that we could use somewhere else. I'm not sure, but I did have that discussion with the finance director, and he said he would talk to you about our discussion.
Okay, we'll keep note of that. Jerry, you want to go next?
I think Rosemary had her hand up before me if she wants to say something.
Oh, I'm sorry, Rosemary. You want to go next, Rosemary?
That's okay. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jerry. I'll give Rosemary next. I'm gonna give everybody a chance to speak on this topic. It looks like everybody has a lot to say. So can we just keep our comments to a minute or two? Go ahead.
From my understanding, Epiphany came in, they did a lot of changes to job descriptions and a lot of changes to and recommendations for the personnel policy manual. And honestly, I am not sure if all that has been approved by council. There was work done, but I mean, it was recommendations, but I don't think council approved a lot of that. Before Stephen left, I sat down with him and talked to him. I went over his job description. I was talking about Stephen Sanders. And I asked him if there was any recommendations or suggestions with that job description, if we should look at seriously changing. And I went through that, and he said, Jerry, it fits perfectly. He didn't have any recommendations for changes to that job description. I wish Stephen the best moving on, but I don't see a need to wait to post this position.
I don't either.
There are minimum qualifications that people have to have, and we need to go ahead and start searching, because if we wait and we don't find somebody, we could be in next summer looking for somebody. John has stepped up to be our acting rec director. And the other thing we need to really look at is possibly hiring somebody on a part-time basis down there, because we only have two full-time people, John and Micaiah. And if one of them is on vacation or sick, we're going to be in a scramble at that rec center. That's why we need to continue to move forward and look for a candidate that can take the rec director's position. And also, you might hear me saying under an emergency, we need to hire somebody part-time down there just to help John and Mikey out.
Don't you have two part-time people down there, John?
Say that again?
Don't you have two part-time people down there?
Yeah, but they work in the evening on certain days.
Do we have that much traffic?
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Pam. Go ahead. You have the floor.
Down in the rec?
I said I can't understand. You say it again?
Do we have a lot of traffic that's coming into the rec center due to the pandemic at this time, where we would need another person on a regular basis?
I mean, we don't have a lot. I wouldn't say a lot of traffic, but just for a safety reason, you wouldn't want one person down there by themselves. What if somebody has to go to the bathroom, or what if it's a big building? What if somebody has to go to the back for whatever? You have the front desk just left unattended.
Okay, I got it.
And just, for that reason alone, I feel like we should have one more person down there.
Okay, thank you.
Good point.
Also, I have a question for Jerry in regards to the advertisement. Ohio Parks and Recs, is that somewhere where outside people can apply for the position?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a recruitment. It's a state organization, Ohio Parks and Recreation Association, but people from out of state look at it as well.
I just need to know how to tell some people who have approached me in regards to the position of how they should go and look for it.
Oh, no, we're just putting it out to Ohio Parks and Recreation Association, so they'll put it on their website that we are looking to hire somebody in Woodlawn. They'll still apply at Woodlawn.
So they need to go to this
No,
Ohio Parks.
If you know somebody, then go to our website. We'll end up posting this on our website as well.
So that's my question. So they can go to the website and it will be on there.
Right.
Rosemary?
I couldn't hear his response.
Jerry's response?
Jerry?
He said yes, it will be on the website.
It would be on the website.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Em, I think your video and audio is
it
messing up a little bit.
lagging?
It's hanging up.
It's like
It's hanging up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Rosemary, you have the floor.
I just wanted to piggyback on what was said, and then also, I don't think we should wait to hire a rec director, okay? It may be slow down there, but this gives us the perfect opportunity to begin to work on.
You hit your mute button. Go ahead, you got to back up a little bit. You had your mute button.
Right. To work on programming and everything that we would like to see down there at the rec. That's a perfect opportunity to do that while it is slow. So to go ahead and hire a rec director right now is a good thing. Also, whenever someone leaves, it's nothing against Steve or anybody. Whenever someone leaves, it's a perfect opportunity to go ahead and look at that job description. They may not feel it's nothing that needs to be changed. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that there are things that do not need to be changed, okay? So I don't think it hurts to look at the job description. And I believe it was about 5 years ago that Epiphany was in, and they did some work on our job descriptions. And Jerry's probably right. I believe a lot of those things, some of them the things have not been approved by council. I know I've been asking for this policy manual that has been in the works for I don't know how long. We've not seen a draft or anything of it. And, you know, that's something that we need. I know it's been well over a year that Emily has been holding on to that, working on that. So there's something that needs to be done with that. But I do believe that we should go ahead and hire that, begin to look at the process for hiring a rec director. And for safety reasons, just like John said, that's a big building down there. If somebody's off sick, Lord, I mean, what happens if both of them come up sick the same day? You know, so it's a bad position to be in. And the job description, it doesn't hurt to look at the job descriptions.
Very, very good points, Rosemary. Kiana has a question.
Just quickly, we don't have to keep talking about this over and over again, but the other thing that I was thinking too, as we start thinking about a new director for the recreation center, is going to be really important that that person understands and has a plan to increase revenue, so that the positions that are at the rec center can be supported by the revenue that's brought in through programming and other things. Because we've been operating in the red there for quite some time. And I think this is, again, a new opportunity to increase revenue as well.
Okay.
And you can only do that by hiring the right person for the job.
Okay. And Brother Chair, if I could just chime in, I know that we will never be self-sustaining down at that recreation. I don't believe that we will never be able to do that. But I do believe that, again, if we make sure that we vet the right person, we know what we are wanting out of that individual and for the services for that building, then we can see the increase of revenue coming into that building to help us offset what we're pouring out from our general fund. So I think that, no, I don't agree that we should wait. I think that we should move forward. Because again, this is a great opportunity to really think about getting the right person in there and start talking about what we're going to do maybe the first of the year. depending on how soon we get this person in. I mean, at the end of the day, we're almost at September, team.
That's correct. Are there any more questions on this vacant position? Oh, I see Pam. Go ahead, Pam.
I have one more question. So that's about the code enforcer. So the code enforcer position is that part-time position?
Yes.
And there's no way that could be a full-time position?
You can keep adding full-time positions, but again,
I'm talking about the code enforcer.
yes, I said you can add a full-time position, but you're looking at benefits and you're looking at paying somebody at much more heftier salary.
I'm just looking at the way the village looks. It just doesn't seem to me that a part-time code enforcer would be able to do the job. Now that's my own opinion. I don't know how the other council would weigh on that. I would love to hear some other comments.
Brian, go ahead. You're the mayor. I think.
I agree. At some point, yes, Pam. But as we talked about before, I am one to believe, as Jerry mimicked that in our last discussion, we talked about that. I'd rather bring you on part-time and increase you to full-time than down the road not having enough things done once things are kind of brought back to where they need to be, and then say we don't need you but part-time. So our goal is to have a full-time person, but certainly let's just start and see what that full-time person is. We don't know what type of person we're going to get in here. That person may be well qualified to know all of the laws and what they need to do, and it doesn't take them 8 hours. So for right now, for budget concern, I think that, again, that we need to bring them in as a part-time. We keep talking about police, service, safety and service, but we want to continue to create full-time benefit positions. And so I'm just to believe that we will begin with a part-time, and then eventually, hopefully, we can go full-time with that position.
Ms. Boyd had a question, and then I'm gonna go with Rosemary. You can go next.
We have some issues going on here in the village. I'm sure you've noticed them when you go around, but a code enforcer is part of safety too. When you mention that, yeah, we do our police and fire, our safety, but code enforcement and a code enforcer is about safety as well. And so that was something that was talked about also. And believe it or not, the constituents in Woodlawn, a lot of them want to see a code enforcer. And when they heard part-time before in the last meeting, they couldn't understand. Even though you gave a justification, they could not understand why it was only part-time. It's very important to the village. You ride around, you look around, people need help, and a code enforcer can assist in that help.
Thank you, Ms. Boyd. Rosemary?
Yeah. You know, I'm all for a full-time code enforcer. I can understand the reasoning, though, trying to put a part-time in, making it full-time. My question is, when you say part-time, how many hours are you talking? Are you talking something like maybe 25, 30 hours a week? How many hours are you talking about? Number one. And number two, to touch back on what Ms. Boyd said, code enforcer is safety too. Not only is it safety, but it's service. So we've got a safety department, our police, we've got our service department. When they see things, maybe there's some kind of protocol or procedure we can put in place that they notify the code enforcer. Now, however, we also have cages where things can be put on cages.
Correct.
They can be looked at by the code enforcer, the service department, as well as our safety department.
Right.
So to bring somebody in part-time, if we can give them, you know, enough hours and then possibly make them full-time, that seems like it might be doable, but eventually I do, and I would like to see a full-time code enforcer. And I just believe once you bring them in part-time, you're going to see that they are needed full-time.
Thank you, Rosemary. Mr. Burkhalter?
Again, I know Ms. Brown has been around just as long as I've been around. I think I've been on council 10 years or more. We've gone back and forth with our code enforcer. We had Mr. Edwards, who was part-time, then we went full-time, then we went part-time, full-time. All of them had room for improvement. But Mr. Edwards done his job, I think, the most efficient out of all those changes. Out of all of when we went
Was he
full-time.
part-time or full-time, dude?
He was part-time. And I'm going along with Jared, I'm going along with the mayor. We started part-time, and if it's a need for more time, then we increase it to full-time instead of going full-time and seeing there's not a need for full-time hours.
So he may not have nothing to do for 40 hours. Huh?
Right. And I wanted to go back real quick, Bob. We were on the recreation department position. I spoke with the mayor. This is something, Ms. Boyd, I wanted to get with you, wanted to get with John. We had talked about doing a drive-in movie night here soon. Wanted to get with you guys to see if we could do that within the next 2 weeks, hopefully not next weekend, but the weekend after. I spoke with the mayor. He wanted me to get with you, Ms. Boyd, the recreation chair, I believe, and John, to put together a drive-in movie night for our residents. So just putting that out there.
Okay. Are there any more questions on this topic? Go ahead, Jerry.
Just one thing, if we're gonna do the drive-in movie night, I need to make sure we have enough time. If that's gonna be considered like a special event, I have to check with our insurance carrier to make sure to see if we have to cover that, or at least notify them we're having a special event so we have coverage.
Okay.
We'll make sure that happens.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next topic is we're gonna move on to public works projects. I see, is Tony still here or would Jerry, would you like to do
I don't
this?
see where Tony was on and off, on and off. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, Tony kept going in and out.
So everyone, did you receive Tony's list?
Yes.
Now, I'll just go through this quickly for you. On his list, pavement programs, Shady Lane and Riddle, they're under contract. Shady Lane, you should have received a schedule. I do have a meeting with Tony, our engineers, and the contractor tomorrow at 3 o'clock with the residents on Shady Lane and also the two on Mayview Forest that are impacted by this project, to go over the construction schedule, let them see our construction plans and address any questions and concerns the residents are going to have. I did shoot them an email yesterday telling them, please understand they're going to be inconvenienced for quite some time throughout this project, but please bear with us. Once it's done, they're going to have a nice road for many years to come, but it is going to be inconvenient for being such a tight dead end street to do this project. So we're meeting with them tomorrow on that. Riddle Road, I don't have a start date yet with Jurgensen, but I think they're looking at starting to do something here shortly toward the end of August. And also they're looking at the bridge to see if there's some repairs we need to make right at that bridge area, which is kind of outside the project, but we're going to do it because it's on Riddle. Jones Alley, separate contract. Council approved that at the last meeting for the $12,336. Jurgensen's going to do that in conjunction with the Riddle Road project. Tony also listed, we asked the engineer, we've tried for skip grants for Chester Road for the last several years and have been denied. So we looked at possibly doing that with our own levy or our income tax receipts for the streets. And our engineers are putting plans together for that project. Their estimate is around $286,000 just to do the north end of that, or the south end of that, I'm sorry, of Chester Road.
Hey, excuse me, Jerry. Before you get too far on into the discussion, Rosemary has her hands up, and I don't want her to go past the top.
They can finish. Yeah, I was just looking at the schedule for Shady from Purist.
Sure.
And yeah, they're saying the Village of Wyoming.
What's that? Oh, you know, this is an old one. I had them correct that. I guess I printed out, or Tony printed out the wrong one. The first one, they said Village of Wyoming, Shady Lane. And I told them, I said, we're not Wyoming. And they did correct it on the other one. I guess Tony printed out the old one and gave it to Monica by mistake, but they did correct that. Thank you.
Okay, you can continue, Jerry.
Redna Terrace is in our industrial area, and that's a concrete street. And I told our engineers, we need to do something up there. Our industrial base is very important to us. That street is in horrible condition. It's not going to be an easy fix, but it could be full depth or maybe a total reconstruction. They did give us the price of $272 or $272,000 roughly as an estimate. I've been around long enough. I hope our engineers are correct because I think it might be higher than that. But we are looking at possibly submitting an application to skip for that. And I have to talk to both our engineers and Tony because I might be coming to council and say we want to do more than $100,000. The only applicants getting skip grants anymore are putting in 50% of the funding or more. And that's where we might have to go. We might have to use that income tax road levy funds to help us secure something like this. And we might have to go 50% on our applications to get funded. Anybody, we've been doing 10, 20, 30%, and we are not getting funded. Everybody that is doing 50% or more seem to be getting the funding. So that is something we have to keep in mind. The Forest Avenue, I just asked our engineer, what would it cost to put a street in there? Because there's been a lot of discussion. I think we had Miss Dillingham that was writing a letter for council meeting. She was at the Dillinghams live at the top of the hill Forest. They have concerns about the road. I know Tony's crew today went out there and pulled out that large limestone and put in some smaller stuff and compacted it. We just hope it holds up, and when we get a heavy rain, it doesn't wash down to the bottom of the street into our catch basins. And in tune with that, I turned around, since that's a paper street, I asked our engineers to contact both MSD and Cincinnati Waterworks to see if there's any public sewer or public water systems out there, and there is not on Forest. The Dillingham property is getting their water from Wayne Avenue. Tony will correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know where the sanitary is coming from because I didn't see anything out there. I don't know if they have septic or not.
Gillingham's coming off Wayne as well.
The other house that is out there in Forest that is at the end of the paper street of Springer, they have a private service going from Marion all the way up to their house, crossing over Forest. Here, if we think we're going to do a new street on Forest, we're running into the same situation we did with Shady, with all these private water services on these roads. And if we decide to move forward with a project and ask Waterworks to come out and put a main through there, it might help sell the other lots and see more development on there. But again, it's going to be extremely expensive to do that along with sanitary. That is something that we as, well, you as council, us as the administration is going to have to recommend to see what we're going to do. But right now, to go back to get that big limestone out of there, they have removed that and compacted it with smaller limestone, other material, in hopes that it is compacted well enough it's not going to wash away when we get a heavy rain. Past experience where that water comes down that hillside, it's going to eventually wash away. So it's going to be a problem for a while until we figure out what we're going to do, if we're going to put a street in there or not. But if you want more information on all of our waterworks and MSD utilities out there, I'll gladly share it with you, because that was the concern I had, is if we're looking at a paper street, developing it into a full paved roadway, we got to make sure we have our utilities in there as well. Any questions on that before I move forward?
Can you explain to some of the viewers what a paper street is?
Well, the paper street is basically, it's dedicated right away, but it's never been paved. A lot of paper streets, developers can come in and say, well, on your paper street, we'll put your roadway in. We want to develop all these houses, all these lots on this area. and then they'll come in and do that, and then they'll pave the street, and then the village, just like Arnold Drive, once it's paved, after so long, when they make all the repairs to meet the village's specifications for a new roadway, then we can accept the roadway and we will take over the maintenance of the roadway. Right now, this paper street, residents decided to build on it because they had a lot. That was their choice years ago. And without any thoroughfare, paved thoroughfare, they decided to do that anyway. And it's on a paper street. If they own the lot, they did it. They ran their own water, they ran their own sewer.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're coming to us saying, put a street in for us. So with that being a paper street, if we want to go ahead and make that a paved roadway, we have to make the decision, do we want to assess the property owners to do it, or do we want to do it at a village expense?
Okay, thank you for your clarification on that. That was very transparent of you. Our next thing on the agenda will be the road level gate.
Couple more things here.
On that, or Jerry?
Couple more things.
Not done.
The fire hydrants I have on the agenda, Tony included. We do have 22 hydrants out of service. We've received a proposal from Hamilton County Planning. Tony has informed me based on some of the plumbing contractors that he's reached out to. Hamilton County Planning has been the cheapest that we've seen. We did get a letter from them in an agreement, but their agreement did not include their exhibit. I asked that we get that so we have their rates into their contract or their agreement. We never received that. We're still working on that. They need to make sure with the contract they show all their exhibits. Once we get that, I would like to come back to council. I spoke to Emily yesterday. We are hoping to get some of these hydrants fixed. I know if we keep it under the $10,000 limit, we don't need to go to council, but I can tell you, in my mind, if we see how far $10,000 goes in replacing some of these hydrants that are, to me, the critical ones to replace, we need to move forward and do that. So Emily's going to work on that. You'll probably see us come to law and finance with proposed legislation to enter into an agreement with them so that we can move forward on that. The hydrants, I mean, there are 2 hydrants I know. Amos can chime in for me the best. 2 together on Springfield Pike. So if you had a fire on Springfield Pike, you're running a hose for several hundred feet to a hydrant, an active hydrant, and bypassing 2 inactives. Redna Terrace, the same way. There's 2 hydrants together that is out of service, which scares me because of that industrial area. They all scare me because I know there's one, Tony informed me on Timberland, that's out of service that we need to address. And I can just go on and on. There's hydrants throughout this community, and I don't know why they were neglected, but for some reason they were. But we need to take serious action on these and start fixing them as we can. And I think me thinking keep it under $10,000, it's just not right. I said we might as well go ahead and get legislation approved by council because I believe in no time we'll be over the $10,000.
Okay, you had a couple hands flash real quick. I'm gonna give them a chance to comment on what you said. I'm gonna go with Pam, Rosemary, and then I think Burkhalter had a question. But go ahead, Pam.
And how fast can we get these fixed? These are really critical. I know there's one on my street that my the residents on the street are complaining about. They want to know when it's going to be fixed. Is that something that can be done pretty fast? Once you get all this information back, are we talking 1 month, 2 months? Because I run into these same residents on my street all the time, and they're asking me.
The best I can tell you, Pam, right now is what I said. We're looking at coming to council with a request for approval of legislation to approve a contract with Hamilton County Planning so we can start moving forward. We get that in place and signed by the county. Hopefully they can start doing something in September or whatever their schedule's like. But we need, I mean, I was at all when I found out how many hydrants were out, and it caught my attention late last year, and that's why I addressed it with Amos and I addressed it with Tony, and we need to correct this problem.
Yeah, I know we're focused on the cost, but I mean, I'm more focused on the safety. So if it's more than 10,000 or whatever it is, I mean, it's affecting my street because I live here. And I just think it should be fixed ASAP. We need to push it forward.
I totally appreciate that. I'm looking at the community as a whole.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking at my street too. I know we're looking at community as a whole, but I mean, it's just something that needs to be, I feel like it's critical.
Thank you, Ms. Gerald. Go ahead, Ms. Brown.
Yeah, I agree. It's community as a whole. It's bad for any place in the community that does not have a working fire hydrant. Okay. My question, and you may have answered this and I didn't hear it. In the letter, it says it will perform the required work on a time and material basis. So the figures that we see here is just for their time, their labor, not for the materials. Are we going to be purchasing the materials, or are we going to see if that's something they can work into their contract? And if so, I mean, the always question is, what kind of dollars are we looking at? This will come into play when it making a decision as to whether or not we're giving 2%, 3%, or 5% increases. Because this is something that we need to get done right away, these fire hydrants.
Okay, go ahead, Kiana. Go ahead, Kiana.
Well, that was a question.
Oh, I'm
Sure.
sorry.
I was giving Jerry an opportunity to answer her question.
I'm sorry, Ms. Brown. Go ahead, Jerry.
I don't think we can continue to ignore these hydrants. Something built into the budget. If we have to make cuts elsewhere, we're going to have to do it. The time and material, they have their time, their hourly rate in here. The material is, we have to pay for the material. I believe Tony told me we have 3 brand new fire hydrants with some of the parts at the Public Works Department that we can furnish for any new hydrant that has to go in. But beyond that, they're going to be buying that equipment or parts, hydrants, and charging us.
Okay. So
I know we have a little, for new hydrants, we have 3 of them, and we can move forward with that, which will help. But we're down the road. It's going to be one of these things we're going to have to find out how much each hydrant is costing us to get an average. So when we appropriate money, we're going to say, well, we have X amount of hydrants out or repairs to be made. And so based on the material costs, we're going to have to add that into their hourly cost to come up with a more solid number. But right now, I can't worry about the material cost because to me, the concern is getting these hydrants fixed.
the parts that we have down at the service department, we have parts, not the whole setup. Is that what you're saying?
We have 3 new hydrants down there.
Oh, okay. Because I was concerned as to whether or not the parts that we have are adaptable to whatever else material that they're going to be getting. Okay.
Amos might be able to chime in on that because I know some of these just have broken stems. He gave me a whole report.
Okay.
All the hydrants that are out of service. Some might just be a broken stem or something like that is just fixing that stem. It's not replacing the hydrant to get service.
All right.
Amos, I'm gonna let you answer the question after Kiana has, because you might be able to pick me back on her question. So go
Absolutely.
ahead.
And just going back to what the manager said, it really just depends on once they break the hydrant down and see what's actually broke. So there's multiple things that's going on with the hydrant. It's the nut can be broke off, the stem where you actually turn it on. It could just be a rubber seat at the bottom that sits below the frost line. So that's why they probably have their hourly rates in there and not the actual cost of the hydrants. We have a couple that are actually missing, as the manager brought up, but a lot of it's just going to be the pieces of the hydrants that have to be replaced. And once they are actually replaced and fixed, like Lincoln Heights, where we have a contract with them, all their hydrants are working 100%. So we probably have about maybe 7 to 10 a year that go out after that with the broken stems and nuts.
Okay. Kiana, you want to give your question?
Yes, I just had a quick question related to the contract. I know that they still have to send us the fee schedule, but I'm assuming this is a fee for schedule contract where they only invoice us if and when they do work. So it's not like something that we have to pay a monthly retainer or fee or anything like that. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yes.
Okay.
They will bill us monthly for the hours that they were engaged in the repair of fire hydrants.
Okay, thank you.
There's a 5%, I forget what they call that.
Consumer price index.
Say that again.
Consumer
They have a
price.
5% fee added on to all their,
5% fee.
yeah, the county does. It's not an environment, it's technology fee. I think they call it a technology fee. Just, I think, for passing on all the paperwork.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any more questions on public works or road levy? Any questions at all? All right, we can move on to the development opportunity for the village, I'm presuming.
Yes, give me just a minute. I had pulled up the information, but I need to pull it back up. But essentially, Chris Smith wanted to address council about a development opportunity. Didn't have the opportunity to come before us today, but I do think it's important for him to be able to come before us to provide some additional information about this opportunity, and then also for us to be able to ask any questions we might have of him. What he is asking for is control of village-owned land on the south side of Waverly for 1 year. He says there's money available through the county that could be used for residential development. The proposals for applying for those funds will be released in October of this year, and they'll make a decision by December of this year. He says that he would need the total support of the village in order to be successful in that application. Says this is an opportunity to bring together very much needed housing for seniors in the village. Asks us to consider that any added cost means more for the homeowner or resident. Over the past few years, there's never been anyone interested enough on Waverly to do any type of development. He is interested, so he's asking that the land be given to him for development, or for him to be able to purchase that land at a moderate rate. His goal is to put together a development that will attract more residents to stay or move to the village of Woodlawn. In order to apply for the funding through the county, they will need full site control of the land. So again, this is just information that he sent to us via email. I'm quite sure that we're going to have a lot of questions about this that I am not prepared to answer. He would be the best person to answer those questions.
Okay, thank you. Brian, go ahead, Brian.
Thank you. So I have a question, and Jerry, I don't know if this goes to you, Tim, whomever, but my concern is that over the years, we have gotten into the place of either giving away land or not having that land evaluated to understand what the land is worth. And so we need to know what that is before we start making some commitments to give land at a I'm concerned about that. So I'm not for sure how much that land has that land. Have we done anything to determine how much that land is worth out there? And if we have not, perhaps we need to.
Okay. Ms. Brown had her hand up. Go ahead, Ms. Brown.
If I remember correctly, I saw Mr. Burkhalter's hand go up so also. I think he's thinking the same thing. About a year or two ago, wasn't that land surveyed? And it came in at a price that was actually more than what it was when we did Arnold Drive.
And I believe that appraisal was inaccurate.
Yeah, because it was a high figure.
Right.
So,
the reason being the land on Arnold was, I believe, what, 30 acres or 33 acres or somewhere around there.
Uh-huh.
And that land is not that at all. That land is probably a quarter of that. And it came in at, the number that we were given came in at like 3 or 4 times the amount of of Arnold. So I don't believe that was an accurate appraisal. But at one time, were you finished, Ms. Brown? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
At one time, Mr. Smith did come and propose to council to purchase the land on Waverly to do housing. And that time, we had our previous village manager have the land appraised, or gave him authorization to have the land appraised. So this is the same project as Mr. Smith is just coming back to us, wanting to follow up to see if we're interested in selling the land, or like he's saying, giving control to him so he could apply for the funding.
Oh, go ahead, Jerry. Jerry has a question. I was going to chime in.
Not a question, just a comment and some information. When I first started back July of last year, I know Mr. Smith came into my office, and this was dealing with both the properties he purchased on Marion that he just built the 2 houses on. And he said he was also structuring a deal with the former manager to buy the Waverly property, and he threw a number at me. And I said, was the property appraised? And he goes, I don't know, that's the number we agreed upon. Well, if the manager agreed it without council's consent, I told Mr. Smith I can't move forward. I remember some time ago, and I was just trying to find the email when Mr. Smith approached you about that, and I threw out, I'll find the email and I'll forward it back out to you, was when Mr. Smith was proposing this, he was putting slab houses on. They were around 1,000 square feet, very small houses. What I said was, 1, did we have the property appraised? 2, what are we going to save it for or sell it for? 3, is the housing he's proposing going to meet the community's need? And is it needed in the community? So I would have to pull that email back up and then call Mr. Smith and say, you need to submit a proposal to us and show us there's a demand for this type of housing. And actually, does that type of housing meet our zoning code? There's a number of things here that I shot back out and saying, hey, I just don't want to sell the property to this developer and have him put something up in our community that we don't want. So that's the concern I have. I mean, if there's a need for it and we are willing for slab houses that are that small, and it meets our zoning code, and if you want to move forward, fine. But we need to make sure that we're not just, I think everyone's just giving the property away to a developer so he can make a buck.
Right. Was there any more questions on this topic? I think I did see a couple of hands. Go ahead, Tim. I see your hand.
That property on Waverly, I know one of the other things we need to check into on that is to see if that was property that was purchased with the real estate acquisition bonds we took out years ago that end in 2033. I just looking at some other stuff, I kind of been researching some of that and kind of been talking to our bond attorney. And I know if that land is associated with that acquisition, there may be some special considerations we have to make for that as well. So that's something else we probably need to check into before we enter into any kind of agreements with somebody.
How long ago was that, Tim? I can tell you. How long ago was?
Oh, the debt?
Yeah, that acquisition.
We've
owned that land. We've owned that land ever since I've lived in the village of Woodlawn.
I bet that I don't have it in front of me, but I bet it has to have been at least 20 years ago that we did that bond.
Yeah, we've owned that land longer than that.
Okay.
Okay, with that being said, is there any new business? Or are you on new business?
I got one other question on that. Since they're talking about the development opportunity.
Are we going back to development opportunity? Go ahead, Pam.
Yeah, I'm sorry you didn't see my hand, but I would like to see something more set in stone in writing. I know we're talking about it, but as far as numbers from Tim, I would like to see more information a little bit later, even though the gentleman wasn't able to speak today. Maybe a little bit.
You kind of went in and out, Pam. Could you finish up your last couple
research done on that? I know Doogie and had some questions about it, but I would like to see something in writing. Can you hear me? I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I was going to say I would like to see Tim give us something in hand in regards to that, some numbers.
Okay.
At a later date, if possible, since Mr. Smith wasn't able to speak today.
And Pam, I believe and I'm not speaking for Kiana, but I believe he's coming to her next economic development meeting, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
Yeah, but if I could get something from Tim in regards to that before the meeting, that would be great.
Okay.
I'm just trying to understand, Pam, so I understand, what numbers are you referring to?
Well, you said something about this acquisition fund.
Your bandwidth.
The acquisition fund?
Your bandwidth is low.
Can you repeat that, Pam? Repeat what you said, Pam.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hear you
Is
now.
that better?
Yeah.
I know that Tim was saying something about the acquisition fund. I would like to see something in writing in regards to the date, if there was some type of acquisition. He said it was 2030 something that he thought that we signed something for it, the land.
There was a real estate acquisition bond we took out years ago. And the amount, it was like $3.8 million, I believe. But I know just in talking other things through with our bond attorney, she had mentioned to me at one point that if we were to ever sell any of the land that we purchased through that bond, there were some special considerations that would need to be made or some other things we'd have to do to sell it. And I wanted to make sure that the land Mr. Smith wants to utilize wasn't part of that purchase. I'll go through the bond documents and see what I can find. There should be plat numbers or addresses or something in there. And I'll see that gets cleared up.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any questions? Oh, Jerry has his hand up. You have a statement, Jerry?
Yeah, just on that, we can check with Emily too, because I think some of those acquisition bonds are related to both our community pool and the rec center. So we can check on that.
Okay. Are there any more questions on that particular topic? The next is there any new business for the village? Jerry?
I don't mean to jump in front of council here, but I just wanted to give you an update on our police hiring process. Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we started out with 5 candidates. One right away declined to continue through the process. We're down to 4. We interviewed those applicants. We've eliminated 2 of them. We have 2 applicants that have gone through the initial interview process with the chief, the assistant chief, and myself. And then I had a separate interview with both applicants and went through the police department's hiring process with all their questions and applications. And I felt very comfortable in telling you that we want to move forward with both applicants and have them go through the CVSA and their, chief, what am I missing? The psychological.
Psychological.
Yes. And the CVSA. I think they're 2 good applicants that we have, and with limited selection of officers out there, I feel comfortable with both of these candidates as moving them forward through the process.
Out of these, I have to ask the question, out of these applicants, how many of them are minority?
The minorities who were in the process, one was kicked out because of the core values and they didn't meet that. And the other one took a position with Green Township. And there's 1 male minority in the process currently, and they're still to be vetted completely in the process. So we're still got a long way to go.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Ms. Boyd? You got to unmute your button, Ms. Boyd.
Yeah, Rosemary had her hand up before myself. Rosemary, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I was just wondering if, if Jerry can shoot us an email if they're coming from other municipalities.
On what?
If you can just shoot us an email with whether or not they're coming from other municipalities.
What would you like the email to say so I can get it for you?
I'd just like to know where they're coming from.
Okay.
I can tell you one is currently with Hamilton County Parks District, and the other is at Cincinnati Public Schools doing security.
Now, okay.
Okay,
Is this new business?
yes, it is.
New business?
If it
Okay,
is, I have my hand up for that also.
okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Ms. Boyd.
Oh, okay. In new business, I have residents that have been calling me about our Zoom meetings, okay? And we were told, and maybe I misunderstood, that the people could send their request in for questions through the website. So I have been sending them to the website. They have been telling me it wasn't there, but I just thought maybe they had some technical issues. I mean, well, technology issues as far as they understood. And I was told today that we do not have, that residents don't have that access to ask questions that we can have at our Zoom meetings, that we can, that we would be able to read at our Zoom meetings and get answers. Because of the pandemic and us having to have Zoom, we don't have where the public can come forward and ask questions any longer. I was given the information that they should email the village manager, Mr. Thaman, and he would answer that. But when I gave that information back to a couple of people who had called me, they feel that that's not the same as when they could be at a meeting and what they had to say was with a public forum. So I want to know, moving forward, what are we doing about that? Because we'll probably be doing Zoom meetings, I would imagine, for a while now with the issue of the pandemic going on. And the residents are not happy with having to email someone without having it in public forum. They feel public forum is more important because they have the support of the community about their issues.
Was that question directed to Jerry?
Who's over that? Brian, Jerry?
I can answer part of that.
Okay.
Because Ashley and I had a conversation today, because when we first started posting on our website, our Zoom meetings, there was also a statement on there for our council meetings that if anyone wanted to address council, since we suspended the public comments, if you had any questions or concerns, please send those to, it was to my email address, and then I will bring those forward at council. Ashley and I, our conversation today was post a general statement for all committee meetings that if a resident has, or business, anyone, has a question or concern that they want to move forward to the committee or to council, to send those emails in, and then I will forward that on to the council chair or to Monica's clerk at council, so it would go to the council meetings.
Okay, so they'll be able to find that on the website, that they are able to have questions that will be read in our public meetings on this Zoom.
Yeah, Ashley and I talked about that this afternoon to make it clear that we're going to do it not just for council meetings, but all of our committee meetings as well.
Right, right. For all of our public meetings. So I want to answer for them, which I hope they're watching today, but I want to answer for them. So they will be able to find this. We have for all of the public meetings that they are allowed to attend or make comments, they will be able to find this, because right now it's not there. And I felt really bad about thinking that they were having technological problems because they couldn't find it. But it will be there. It's on
the website now, Ms. Boyd. I just checked the website. It does include Jerry's email address. To address council with your concerns, please contact Jerry Thaman, and it has the phone number and also the email on our Woodlawn website.
Okay, then that was put there. It hadn't been put there today, because when I spoke to her today, she said that she was going to address it with Jerry. And then she said that when she got back to me, she said that it would just be on there to contact him. But contacting you would mean that you're going to bring those concerns and you will speak on them at the public meeting.
And I think we'll even modify that since Monica's back as the clerk of council. If it's a maniac issue, that we'll add Monica to the website as well.
Okay.
So take something that wants to be directed right to council so that she's involved in that loop as well.
Okay.
I think Kiana has her hand up next. Go ahead, Kiana.
I did, and actually, Ms. Boyd, thank you for bringing that up because I had that on my list to talk about as well. I think that we could do a better job of allowing our residents to participate in these meetings throughout the pandemic. I think that, you know, one avenue with having them send their questions ahead of time is one way to do it. I think we can do a better job of that because I think when somebody else is speaking on your behalf, you don't get the opportunity to provide further explanation or details. We might have questions about someone's question or request that we don't have the opportunity to engage with them to be able to get that additional information so we can do our jobs and respond appropriately. So my question is related to, just as we did in the in-person meetings, we gave people a limit for how long they could speak. If that conversation started to go on a little longer, we were able to stop it and say, and make an assignment for somebody to follow up with them for further information. But I think that right now in particular, it's important for us to stay connected to our residents and allow them the opportunity to engage with us, to ask questions and all of those things. I don't know what, with ICRC, what is available or capable. I know that in other Zoom circumstances, you do have the opportunity to split your audience into people that are considered panelists and then people that are considered guests. And you can also control muting people and all of those things. But I think it would be really important for us to figure out a better way to keep our residents engaged and allow them to have direct access to us through these meetings.
And something short, one of the things that they spoke to me about was Councilwoman Tribune, and they talked about how you assured them of transparency when we had Meet the Candidate, and they were very impressed with that, and that's what they are asking for. So thank you for commenting on that.
Brian had his hand up. Brian, I think he has.
Just quick, Ms. Boyd. Just real quick, totally understand your concern out there in terms of the residents, but when we have those, and we've had those here over the pandemic, where we have met, if the issue is of height, we go out to that resident and address their concern.
Okay.
Me, Jerry, and Tony have been out in the field addressing a concern if it's that important. But we did ask that they just give those questions, and Jerry have put those questions on the floor. Resident has a concern about whatever that concern is. Then we talk about it amongst council. But if there's a need for us to go to that resident, we certainly have done that. And we will continue to do that.
Okay. Well, they just said that it wasn't available there when I kept sending them back to the website. And they kept telling me it wasn't available until I talked to Ashley.
Okay.
All right.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Is there any more new business tonight?
I just have one suggestion also.
We got Eric, if you will finish up with this,
Jerry, for the meetings, Jerry, can we post that on our video board in front of the municipal building also as well, your email address and whatever we need to post in regards to when we're going to have a meeting?
I don't know how much we can post on there, but we can
I'm just saying, if we're putting your email address on there and just saying if you have any concerns or questions, email.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know how much room, how many
it's characters. Not a lot of characters on that board.
But we could figure something out. Right. We try to figure something out with that and see if we couldn't use that message board as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mrs. Brown had a question or statement.
Yes, I just wanted to notify everybody that Tim is coming up on his 6th month with us in October. And I had a conversation with him today, and what I told him I was going to do was drop down to him a copy of our evaluation form that we would be using to evaluate him for, his 6 months. what I'll do, and he can look through it and give any feedback. I also asked him when we're ready to do the evaluation, if he would give us maybe like a week before a list of things that he has accomplished during his 6 months. What I will also do is get a copy of that evaluation form to each one of you council members so that you can look over it and have an idea of the type of questions and everything that we will be evaluating him on. And then at some point in time, we will need to make a decision as to a date when we can all get together and do that evaluation. His 6 months is in October. Not sure of the exact date, but I would like to get that done in October.
Kiana, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I just had two additional things. One, actually three really quickly, sorry. One is about, there was some email traffic about this ethics training. And it was stated for council members to wait to do anything with that until we had a chance to hear from Mayor Poole. And then somebody made a request that we discuss that in tonight's meeting. I don't remember who it was. Maybe it was you, Pam, or Ms. Boyd. But I wanted to address that.
Sure. Real quickly, so that
Want to discuss. Mayor didn't want to discuss, so he sent me an email.
Okay.
Brian has the floor. Go ahead, Brian.
I did not feel that it needed to really come to council as an agenda item. It is simply training that comes every 4 years that all of us have to take. And so it's simply registering out of one of those time slots that are available. Ms. Brown called the other day. Her concern was she wanted to see if we could all be on the same thread. As I said to her, I can't be responsible or hold everybody accountable for a certain date, not knowing what everybody's schedule is. I've already signed up for the 18th. I've signed up for the 18th. So I just urge everybody to get on that and sign up because I want to say the last one is in October. Did I not see that?
I think so.
Correct.
Okay. And that's something that Monica can assist with to sign up and pay for the cost, or would you like us to pay for that? And then
let me get with her and I'll send an email because it did not ask me anything like that. So it tells me that it's going to invoice the village. That's how I kind of from the registration piece because it never asked me for any payment. So that tells me once I'm saying that I'm from the village of Woodlawn, the village will receive an invoice for that. And I believe but I am going to make sure of that tomorrow. And I'll send that out to you as well, Pam.
That is correct.
That
is correct.
Okay.
The other thing that I had, the second thing that I had was related to CIC. I know CIC has not met over the past few months. Right. So I wanted to know, Brian, I wasn't sure if you had been in contact with Mr. Kutcher or not regarding CIC and when we expect that to pick back up with meetings, in particular around Harmony Park. So I know we've been talking about that and we've got some donations and then everything kind of came to a standstill.
So I believe that we are trying to target for a meeting in September. But again, the Harmony Park is not off the board. It's never been off the board. The issue became CIC was looking for additional funds from the village, at which they said that there would be no funds used from the village for that project. So again, this is an ongoing thing, but our goal is that we continue resume those meetings in September.
Great, thank you. Okay, and then my last question was related to Active Woodlawn Inc. I know that there was something that was due, some sort of financial report or audit that was due for Active Woodlawn. So I just wanted to know if there was any update on that.
I've taken care of that with Tim.
Awesome. Thank you.
No worries.
Got a question.
Hold on, Ms. Brown had her hand up next, and then I'll come to you, Ms. Fitzgerald. Go ahead, Ms. Brown.
Now, speaking of Harmony Park, that reminded me, that area over there in where Harmony Park was slated to be built is growing back up. It's beginning to overgrow again. And all those funds and monies, grant that we got and monies that we put in was put in to clear that out. And now it's growing back up. What are we doing? I think I had talked to Steve had said something about, was that a project he was working on? Because that was considered part of his responsibility under rec. Did I remember that correctly, Jerry?
I mean, Harmony Park was on
Not Harmony Park, the area behind Harmony Park.
that would be something I would probably have to take up with Tony to see where the responsibility was on any of that maintenance.
Okay.
Rec or Public Works.
I'm not sure, but I thought Steve said he may have had somebody that was going to begin working on it. I could be wrong, but I just think it would be a shame to let it grow back up after all that time and effort was spent in, you know, getting it taken care of and cleared out.
Rosemary, I just want to speak on what she said. There was, Steve did have a maintenance person back there working on it. I don't know if they completely finished it, but Mr. Tyrone Williams was working on that part. He had mentioned, he came and mentioned to me how bad it was back there, and Steve had started to get that taken care of. So I'm not sure if it was finished.
He never started. So I believe what Ms. Boyd
Yeah, he started. He started. Now I don't know if he finished it.
That's
but
behind
I do
the
know he
pool.
started.
Behind the pool area, perhaps, Ms. Boyd?
It's a trail somewhere behind the Harmony Park.
Yeah, but he hasn't started over there.
He started at some part of it. He
Right.
started, I do know that.
Very
But
little.
I know that part.
Uh-huh.
Okay, team. Pam, did you have the next question or statement?
I just have one question to Kiana or whoever can answer. What is Active Woodlawn Inc. and who's in it? What is it?
Kind of like the Woodlawn Boosters,
It's
if you recall that.
Yeah, it's a nonprofit organization that was created to help
Offset.
provide resources and funding for some of the events and programs that occur in the village. Funds have been used to support a lot of different things. I think some of the funds were used to support the summer concert series, or maybe some scholarships, uniforms for sports, and some of those things. But it's a nonprofit.
So is it people that are in Woodlawn, or is this just something somebody just made? Okay, because I didn't know exactly what it was. I've heard some, people who've said Active Woodlawn Inc., but I didn't know what it was. Okay,
Tillman has something to say.
Thank you. Go ahead, Chief.
Speaking of Active Woodlawn Inc., we just received an invoice from the vendor that we use, the village uses for the slightly used furniture. I would like to see that invoice gets submitted and paid for, and it's got Woodlawn Active Inc. is the nonprofit that it's under, and it's where the village goes to get gently used furniture. And I don't think we want to lose out on getting those resources from that vendor. So I just wanted to mention that while we were on that topic.
Okay. Is there any more new business? Or anybody have any comments or statements for tonight? With that being said, I make a motion for adjournment.
Second.
Okay. Thank you.
All eyes. You have to take it all eyes.
All eyes.
Aye.
Aye.
I myself as well.
Are there any no's?
Thank you, Bobby.
Yes or no's?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for hosting.